What's up, guys?
It's Monday Miracle Monday.
Yay! So today we're munching on some blueberries. You guys can have some if you want.
Help yourself.
Delicious.
They are good.
Mm-hmm.
Good job picking those out.
Thank you.
she's chowing down.
So today I thought it would be fun to hear some stories of Moriah's experience working for a Christian business.
I've worked at the Creation Museum on and off for several years. Once you're in, it's really hard to leave. It's really hard to get out.
Sounds very occultic.
It was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And I really truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. I had wild and crazy experiences there. And I also met some of the best people.
That's true. You did.
Some of my best friends are from the Creation Museum. And
some of the worst.
Some of the worst are also from the Creation Museum. And yeah, I mean, I just have so many stories.
That one was really sour.
Oh.
I twitched.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear them. I've heard some of them, but
yeah. Where do I even begin?
That's a good question.
I think that there are some things at the museum that happened that are really unique experiences. And I remember it was my third day working there or something. Well, okay, I should preface this with I worked in a couple different departments. I worked in the bookstore when I was 16, I think. So that was a summer. I worked there for a summer. And then several years later, I started working there full time in a different department. And so I don't have a ton of stories from the time. I do have one really good story actually from the time that I was working in the bookstore when I was young. I worked with a girl who she wore glasses that were tinted, a little bit tinted. And this is just one of the funniest stories. She was working downstairs in our little bookstore downstairs, and this lady came up to her and gave her a DVD and was like, can you tell me how much this is? Which that used to happen all the time. People just don't know how to turn it around and find the price. And so she took it and she turned it around and she was told her the price, $21.99 or whatever, and gave it back to her. And the lady was just looking at her, and she was just standing there why are you staring at me? And the lady was just staring at her and staring at her. And she was like, can I help you with anything else? And the lady goes, are you blind?
Oh my gosh.
And she was like, no. Literally, lady, you just handed her a DVD to ask how much it is.
Oh my gosh.
She turned it around, saw it, and gave it back to you, and you have the audacity to ask if she's blind?
What in the world?
And she was like, well, it's actually really rude to wear sunglasses inside. And the girl was like, okay, these are my glasses, though.
Oh my goodness.
And it was just crazy. She came upstairs and told us all that story, and we were like, what? Because she was the only one down there. And we were all like, oh my gosh, we totally would have I don't know what we would have done, but we all would have fought for her, because how crazy to be are you blind?
It's really rude to wear sunglasses inside.
And she had a light sensitivity. And that's why her glasses were kind of tinted. And it wasn't even noticeable.
Yeah,
it wasn't
not sunglasses.
No, she wasn't wearing sunglasses. Tint. Yeah, it's when those transition lenses, when you come in from outside, it takes a while for for it to go back. It was kind of it was halfway back to normal after being in the sun. That's
yeah, I know exactly. I can picture it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was so crazy. Some people really have no filter, and they just feel very comfortable asking whatever they want to. It's very crazy. But also just use critical thinking. You see that she's working here and actively moving around. She doesn't have a dog. She doesn't have a cane.
And who are you to talk to someone like that anyways?
Exactly.
I will never understand that.
It was so crazy. It was so crazy. One time I had to call security because a fist fight broke out right in front of me. And that's like unusual for the Creation Museum. You know, people come there, they're usually tame. It's a lot of homeschoolers, you know? And yeah, I remember this so vividly because it was so like scary. We had one person working the register, and I was behind the counter, like I was just coming to retrieve something. I wasn't like working, you know. I was working, but I wasn't working a register.
Yeah.
I didn't have a drawer or anything. And the line was like kind of long because people were trying to buy planetarium tickets. It was right before the show time, so like there was a lot of like whatever. So I had my back to like the people, and I'm like I was like filling out some paperwork or something, and people are like disgruntled because it's taking a long time,
Of course.
and loudly saying, "I can't believe you have 2 employees back there and only 1 working." And I just like rolled my eyes and I kept going. And the girl that was running the register was just like doing her best, but also like you have to like ask people what time do you want to see the planetarium? Here are your options.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot involved. And there were some people who wanted to catch the next show, which was just about to start. And when you sell planetarium tickets, you have to like leave a gap of time. Like you have to we stopped selling them like 5 minutes before the show, because how are you going to get to the planetarium? Like you can't just, I don't know. So anyway, this couple was like, they wanted tickets, and he was like, "I'm going to miss my show. I'm going to miss my show." And he was like freaking out.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then it was just so much. So I was just listening, kind of like letting her do her thing, checking people out. And then the guy started yelling at the person who was like buying something, like, "Hurry up." He started cussing him out, which is also rare for the museum. Started cussing him out, was like, "You better hurry up because like I'm going to miss my show because of you. You're taking so long, blah, blah, blah." And that's when I realized, oh, this is about to get ugly. And so we had, at the registers, we had like a panic button underneath the drawer, like underneath the registers. And we also had a phone. Where I was standing, there was a phone. And so I picked it up and I dialed security. And this girl, Christy, answered. She was the sweetest thing ever. And she answered and she was like, "Public safety, this is Christy." And I was like, "Hi, Christy, we have a situation up here. Can you please send an officer?" And she was like, "Yep, what's going on?" And I was like, "Some people are about to break out into a fist fight." And she was like, "Okay, somebody's on their way." And then like they were actively yelling at each other saying, "Do you want to take this outside? Like we can take it outside." And then from both ends of the corridor, these like officers come running, like, because what I didn't know is that the girl that was working the register, at the same time I called, she pulled the panic button on the register, which I don't think we had ever pulled it before. Like but it was so crazy. And then all of that because he just wanted to see the next and it wasn't even the last planetarium show of the day. Like it wasn't that deep. You could just wait an extra 20 minutes and see the next one.
Yeah, and are you a Christian acting like that?
Exactly. Like, wow.
That's embarrassing.
It was so crazy. And like the adrenaline, because like in a situation like that, when you hear people actively like cussing each other out, yelling loudly, and there's like a lot of people around, it's like very, I don't know, your body just kind of reacts. And on the outside, I stayed really calm. And when I called Christy, I was like trying to be very quiet because I didn't want them to know that I'm like calling security on them. And yeah, that was it. That just always sticks out to me because like what a weird experience
at the Creation Museum.
And like you don't know. Back then they didn't have, I mean, they're a lot higher security nowadays, but back then you never know like what somebody's bringing with them. We didn't have metal detectors. We didn't have anything like that that they do now. And so, you know, you never know how that could go.
Yeah, that happened at Five Below, except they did have guns.
Like, actually? Like, they
Yeah.
pulled a gun?
They didn't shoot it, but one of the guys did, and like everyone was talking about it, and like they were like pushing each other
Oh my
into like the
gosh.
shelves.
Oh my gosh.
They were like having a whole fight, and I was just like, what do I do? Because I'm not about to go over there and tell
Right.
them to stop. And I think like one of my coworkers, I think she called the police,
Yeah.
but or they left by the time the cops even came.
That's good.
They always do. That's
Yeah.
always how it goes. Like no one ever gets like caught
Mm-hmm.
when they should. But yeah, it was like probably like a 60-year-old man
Oh my
versus
gosh.
like a 30-year-old man. I don't even know what caused it. I don't know what happened. I think it had to do with the other guy's girlfriend or wife
Oh
or
my
something.
gosh.
It was crazy. And yeah, so but I don't know how to react in those situations. So I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, this is crazy. And yeah, thankfully nothing crazy happened. But
Wow.
I mean, I guess that was crazy enough.
Yeah,
but
that's pretty crazy.
yeah.
It's always like men that just don't know how to regulate their nervous system. Like, okay, let's just take a deep breath. We don't have to resort to fighting or violence.
Literally.
Just be patient.
And over a planetarium?
I know. It's so crazy. I mean, I loved working the planetarium because I don't know. I'm going to say it because everybody did. We all fell asleep in there when we were working the planetarium. We would start the show and just fall asleep because it's dark, it's cold, it's quiet.
I've been in there for a show and I had to hold my eyes open so
Yeah.
I wouldn't fall asleep.
Yeah, because the chairs lean all the way back and it's just so cozy.
It really is. It's weird. You forget you're in a room full of like bunch
Other
of people.
people.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they don't have this version anymore, but when I worked there, the version of the planetarium show was Mr. Whitaker's voice. Like, he was the narrator. And so, like, that is so calming to me. Like, it was just so
Yeah.
relaxing because it's like, I'm just listening to Mr. Whitaker take me on a tour through space. And, oh my gosh. Yeah. And sometimes I would have to, like, set my alarm on my phone so that I could make sure that I, like, woke up in time to end the show. I always did. I never, like, messed it up or anything. But, yeah, it was really nice to work in the planetarium in the afternoon after a lunch break. That was the best time to be there.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. What about like coworkers? Any interesting people you worked with?
Oh, yeah. There were always really interesting people working there,
To say the
to
least.
say the least. I had really, really amazing bosses and really, really not amazing bosses there. Danielle was the best person to work with. She was the best boss I've ever had, and I just loved her so much. And I don't think she wasn't even the manager when I was working there, but she was like my supervisor. So she was just the best.
Can we talk about how you worked with a furry?
Oh my gosh. Can we? Yeah, I did. I worked with a furry.
At the Creation Museum?
At the Creation Museum. There are like a few of them there.
Still?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Were they there when I went?
I'm not sure.
They're not like actively in their costumes when they're working, but
Right.
they might have like a tail or ears or something.
No, they don't have any of that. Like,
Didn't wait have one before?
yeah, but I
tail?
think he got in trouble.
Oh. Well, there has been a time that they wore a tail in, but
Yeah.
it's just, you find out from sources they're alter egos.
Yeah. And they are like alter egos. Like, they actually have like a name and everything. Like, they go to conventions, and like there were so few of them that they all like knew each other and knew like about that. But some of them kept it really, really quiet because
I would too.
yeah, some of them were like very like out about it.
Oh, God.
But other people were like not. Yeah, there were a few of them. They're still there. A lot of them. I just always thought that was really interesting.
They're really feeding into the creation part of the Creation Museum. The Noah's Ark, the different animals.
Yeah. I bet there's I worked at the Ark too. And when I worked at the Ark, Oh my gosh. The ARC is like a different universe because it's a lot of like locals that work there. So the museum like draws people like to move here to work for the museum.
Wow.
But then the ARC, it was like people that were already in the area
Mm.
just started working there. So when I worked there, it was like shortly after it opened, maybe a month or two into it. And wow, the things that I heard and experienced there, it was like working in the secular world because the people were so open about so many things.
Oh gosh.
And yeah, I mean, there were couples hooking up in closets, like janitorial closets, and in the parking lot, and like it was a lot for me. I think I was 20 when I worked there.
It was basically like homeschooled theater kids who didn't grow out of that. That's what the employees were like.
Yes. But it was also a lot of public school kids
Oh.
because it was like the locals that weren't like, a lot of them weren't Christians.
So just theater kids that
Yeah.
didn't grow up.
Theater kids and sports kids that were like, I don't know, it was a lot. And so like I would overhear conversations, people would tell me things and I would be like, oh my gosh, like some of the girls were just like passed around. And I'm just like, I was so shocked because I was used to working at the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the ARC and I just kind of expected it to be the same. And there were some other people who worked, who came to the ARC after the museum to work. And one of them, it was one of my friends, and she was working in the cafe. And I went over there one time and I was like, do you know that this is happening with all your girls? And she was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Don't tell me. And that's kind of how I felt after a while. I was like, please. I didn't last long there.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. I mean, it was an 1.5-hour drive, so that was tough.
Yeah, that's not even worth it in the slightest.
It wasn't. That was really hard. That was a hard job. My favorite time to work at the museum was always Deaf Day. I loved working Deaf Day. That was a day that we promoted. I mean, anybody could come there that day, but it was promoted specifically for the deaf community. So we would have like captions on all of our videos, which I think you should just have captions on all of your videos all the time, no matter what.
That's true.
That's
some people are just like hard of hearing in general too.
exactly. And like, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's so common now. Like we have captions on for everything all the time. And we would have interpreters and special like events and special, like we would have a special deaf speaker give the 12 o'clock, like whatever. So that was always really fun because I took ASL in high school and after high school actually. And so it was fun to be able to use that skill. And there was one time, it wasn't Deaf Day, but every once in a while I would have like a deaf family come through my line. And I would sign to them and they would be like, oh my gosh, they would be like so shocked. And there was one time when one of my coworkers called me up to a specific area because they needed an interpreter. And I was like, okay, like I'm not an interpreter. Like I am not fluent like that, but I can like stumble along and help you out. Sure. So I came up and I like introduced myself and it was 2 girls and they were both signing and I was watching the interaction and I was watching my coworkers speaking with them and I was like, she has an interpreter. Like this is like the one girl is hearing and she is the interpreter, but they're just both signing because she's the interpreter.
Yeah.
And so it was so awkward. I was just standing there and
so like, she didn't want to tell you that like it's fine, like I'm the interpreter?
Well, I don't think she knew that my coworker called for an interpreter. I think she just saw them signing and she was like, oh, I got to call Moriah. And then when I introduced myself and I was like watching them interact, I was like, I asked them, I was like, do you need like an interpreter or anything? And she was like, no, like that's why I'm here. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I like was signing everything, and I was like, just let me know if you need me. Ask for captions when you go into shows. Like it was so awkward because I was like, I don't know. It was just so awkward, especially to like, because I know that I'm not like a great signer. So to be like, to an interpreter, do you guys need an interpreter?
I
It was
know.
so like humiliating.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I looked at my coworker and was like, they're good. Like she's the interpreter. Like, and she was like, oh, okay. Like, oh my gosh. But it always was fun, like, not on deaf day when people would come through my line and I could sign for them. That was always like fun. It was fun to like brush up on it because Ariel and I will sign at home, but it was fun to like be able to do that and make somebody's experience like
Yeah.
over and above what they expect.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one reason why I've always wanted to learn that and different languages and everything, just because I like to be able to like communicate with people. Like there was one time at Five Below, I did have a deaf customer, and I don't know anything really except for like the few like things that probably everybody knows in sign language. But I did know thank you. So when he like as he was like taking his stuff to leave, I signed that and he looked so happy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like whenever you are deaf or whenever you speak another language, you're already like a minority in like the public, because most people, especially in like retail and stuff, like most people probably don't speak another language, and most of them probably don't know ASL. And so when there's like someone that like understands, or like someone that like, he literally had to write on a note, like he had to communicate that way. I don't remember what he had to say on it, but yeah. And it's like, so if you show like 1 ounce, like even like Spanish, like I know some Spanish, not a lot, but there would be times when I would like speak a little Spanish to people, and it would just like make them light up. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're not good at it. They're just happy to see that you're like trying.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's
sweet.
A lot of times people would come up like with their note ready of like everything, all the tickets that they needed, and they would hand it to me, and I would realize, oh, they're deaf. And then so I would take that and put it down and like get everything into the computer, and then I would start signing to them, and they would be like, oh my gosh, like shocked, because I took the paper and I was like, got it. And then just surprise, my hands speak.
I love that.
Yeah. If you want to take sign language classes, I know where we can take them.
Okay.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I used to take them with actually one of my friends from the museum. She doesn't work there anymore, but yeah, we took sign language classes together. I wanted to take them, but I didn't want to go alone. It was in Cincinnati. And I was like, ugh, I don't want to go alone. And so I posted, did I post on Facebook? Or maybe she approached me. I can't remember. But we went out to Chipotle, and she was like, I want to take sign language classes, and I'm wondering if you want to do it with me. And I was like, oh, I've been wanting to take them too. And so that was so fun.
I love that.
Yeah, it really worked out. So we would go every week together. It was fun. One time somebody told me that they were allergic to rice, and I was like, wow. Well, because, okay, I was talking about my peanut allergy because I had recently accidentally been poisoned by my mother. And so I was telling that story.
Okay, Rapunzel.
I was telling that story to one of my coworkers, and somebody overheard. And my coworker had a shellfish allergy, so she was like, I get it. And then somebody was like, oh yeah, I'm allergic to rice. And I was like, really? That's crazy. Like how did you figure that out? Well, every time I eat rice, I just like, my tongue really itches. I'm like, okay, fascinating. And I said, do you rinse your rice when you make it? She was like, I don't really know. Okay. She was like, but I know that it's rice because one time my roommate made rice, and I had a grain, and my tongue got really itchy. Okay. I mean, That sucks. It was just so like funny because we were talking about like our severe like could kill us
Deathly.
allergies. And she's just like, I'm allergic to rice, which like is a real allergy. Like my nephew is allergic to rice, but it's like it causes like a rash. Like I don't know. It was just funny. Like
My tongue itches.
my tongue itches. Like okay, that happens when I eat too much pineapple.
I know, that's what I was thinking. When I was younger, I didn't have any allergies that I knew of, but I didn't like coconut. So I would say I'm allergic to coconut because I didn't like the way it felt. Like it kind of like always gave me a weird feeling in my like mouth, and like I just hated the texture of coconut.
Yeah.
So I would say I was allergic to it.
Tessa said that about mushrooms, I think, because she hated mushrooms, and so she like didn't want to have to like cut them when we worked at the cafe, and so she just said that she was allergic to mushrooms. And I was like, girl. So she never had to deal with mushrooms, but I knew the truth.
I hate mushrooms too, so I get it.
Yeah, me too. I make a really good mushroom soup, which I'll have to make for you one day.
I don't eat mushrooms.
It's blended.
Ew.
It's so good.
Something about eating mushrooms just sounds so gross.
I know. I hate mushrooms. I like the texture of them is like
like an eel.
Yes. Yes. But the mushroom soup has really good flavor, and it has like it tastes, I mean, because it's blended with like potatoes and stuff, so it's just like a thick and creamy soup.
You should just not told me that there's mushrooms.
You're so right. What was I thinking?
I would have been like, this is good. What's in it? And you would have been like, mushrooms and stuff. And I would have been like, I'm never eating it again. Just because the thought of it.
Yeah.
But,
I
won't.
Kind of gross.
I'll probably try it.
It's funny that you don't like eating mushrooms because you love to look at them.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah, you're right. What am I thinking? I remember one time I realized, like, I don't think of myself. Actually, you might laugh at this. I don't think of myself as a fidgety person. Like I'm not like fidgety when I'm sitting down.
Oh, no. Not like me, that's for sure.
And I remember being in like the speaker's hall as a show host one time. And when you do that, you like have to sit through the whole like presentation and then keep count of everybody that's coming in and everybody that's leaving and stuff like that. And so I was sitting by the door, and there were enough people in there that I needed a second person, because you have to have a certain amount of people in case, for fire regulations and everything, you have to have a certain amount of people per group. Mm-hmm. So we were sitting next to each other, and I was like crossing my legs, and then I would cross my other leg, and I would like scratch my nose, and I was like fidgeting, but I didn't really like, I am not a fidgety person, but I was just fidgeting. And the person next to me sat statue still. And I was like, I sure am moving around a lot. Like, it just struck me how I was just like fidgety. And I remember like tweeting. That was back in the days when I would tweet everything. I'd be like, wow, you really don't realize how fidgety you are until you're sitting next to somebody that doesn't fidget at all. It's like such a weird feeling.
Yeah, it is. I deal with that every time when I'm in church.
Yeah.
I can't help but think about it, and I'll just like look around and I'll see the other fidgeters, and then I'll see the other people who just sit there. I mean, you really aren't like that, but like that is a part of my fidgeting, is I have to be like looking around, I have to be moving, and like,
yes.
I don't know. It's just like, I really wonder what it would be like to not be like that.
I know. And like, I will say, even if from the outside, if I look like I'm not fidgeting, the likelihood that inside my shoes, my toes are going crazy. That's
the
like,
dogs are barking.
The dogs are barking. Because that's, I was taught to like sit still. That was like a thing that I had to do, especially in church, was like sit still. And so the only way I could like stim or like get that energy out was like in my feet. And even now, that's like my main source of like fidget, is like my feet. I'll like, I don't know, curl my toes, uncurl my toes, curl my toes, uncurl my toes, bounce my foot. And like, yeah, I don't know. That's just.
I feel like church leaders and stuff, like growing up, the youth pastors, whoever, they would probably try to instill that in us and in me, but it just never worked. I was that kid that like would be laughing with other kids like during stuff. Like I just couldn't help it, because it's like when you're supposed to be quiet, everything is so funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, always fidgeting, like even when like cell phones were still like pretty new back then. Like I remember getting in trouble for being on my phone at church one time. That's like not a thing now. It's crazy how like old I am. Like that makes me feel so old. Yeah. But I just remember like having my phone out in church, and literally this lady was like, "Get off your phone in church." I don't know if she was like some type of leader, whatever. But I was like, girl, who are you talking to? But yeah.
Don't you know I have a problem with authority?
Oh, she knew after that. Didn't take anyone long to realize that.
I remember being like little in church with my mom, and she would like, if I was like, I don't know, I feel like I was a pretty quiet I mean, I was a very quiet kid.
You definitely were.
But if I was just like, you know, moving around or fidgeting, and I would like draw a lot in church when I was little. And I just remember like sometimes if it was just getting to be too much for my mom, she would just reach over and touch my leg and just hold her hand on my leg, and that just meant you need to stop. Like you're being too loud or you're being too disruptive, you need to stop. And then I would have to sit there just totally still. And that was hard. And I remember one time, I wonder if she'll remember. I'm sure she doesn't remember this, actually. It was so traumatic for me.
Oh.
There was one time we were in church, and I used to get chronic sinus infections when I was little. I was a very sick kid, to be honest. I always had sinus infections. I had mono. I was just like sick.
And you also had a bunch of allergies.
And I had a ton of allergies. I couldn't eat any food. So one time when I had a sinus infection, my mom and I were sitting together in church, and she turned around and asked the woman behind us, who was her friend, like we knew each other. She was like, "Do you have any gum?" And Erica like reached in her purse and like gave my mom some gum, and my mom popped it out and gave me a piece, and I was like, "No, thank you." And she was like, "Yes, I got this for you. You need it." Because when you have sinus infections, your breath gets really stank. And I was like young.
You didn't like the peppermint?
I didn't like the peppermint. I was probably like 9. And it was like, I wasn't there yet. You know, my taste buds weren't there yet. And oh my gosh, I remember putting it in my mouth, and my eyes watered because it was so spicy.
Oh my gosh.
And I was just looking at my mom, and she's like, "Just chew it for a couple seconds and then you can spit it out." But like, it's real bad. And I have never forgotten that. Yeah, so that was pretty scarring to me. I like how this has devolved from like my Creation Museum experiences to Moriah's childhood trauma.
Because we just have so many childhood stories. We could probably just end every episode with a childhood story.
Yeah. So another Creation Museum story. I'm going to tell you the story because I have such high hopes for us in the summer. So at the museum and at the Ark, they have zip lining.
Why are you?
I don't know. I expected a reaction after that, and then you didn't react.
I don't know what you want me to say. But in my head, I was picturing me going, "Woo!" down the zip line. That's why I was quiet, because I was already picturing it.
So when I worked there, I don't know if they still do it. I'm hoping that they do. But they used to do like a friends and family zipline day where like employees and their families could like come and zipline for free, so that we could accurately like advertise for it. Like people were like, "Oh, have you ever been ziplining?" Like, yes, and it was amazing, or yes, and don't ever do it.
I thought you were gonna say we're like the testers to make sure it's still operating right.
No, that'd be crazy. Yeah, let's expose them.
Does it like go over the water?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
Fun.
The very first one goes over the water. So they would have a day, or like it was a weekend or a couple weekends, I don't know, before the high season, before the summer, where they would like let us do it for free. And I am afraid of heights, but I was like, it's free.
Yeah.
So I might as well try it. And I did. I went with 2 of my coworkers. We were the only ones that did it of our like department. And that day we were the only ones that did it. I tried to get my dad to go, but he wouldn't. I don't know. He had done it before. So he was like, I don't need to do it again. And yeah, nobody else wanted to go with me. So I just was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So it was after work in the evening, and it was a beautiful spring evening. It was a little chilly. And we went ziplining, and we did the whole entire course. Cause like, they're like, we can just stop whenever you guys are done. But we did the whole entire course. And the very last, I think it's the very last one, is a Superman zip line. So you're like chest down.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
It was amazing. It was so cool. And you're just like, you're like in the fields because you go back away from the museum as you're doing the zip lines. And so you're in like this giant open field, Superman zip lining into the forest. It was so cool and so fun. And we have to do it.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
For some reason, that sounds safer than a roller coaster to me.
It might be. I don't know. I feel like some roller coasters can be so like borderline safe, you know?
Yeah, well, I've been on roller coasters where you're facing the ground too, and it's terrifying.
Oh, true. Yeah.
It's absolutely terrifying, but so fun. But I don't think I could do it again on a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I have out roller coastered myself of scary roller coasters that I have like a fear of them now, and I don't know where it came from, but
that's really unfortunate for me.
I mean, I think I might be able to do, I don't know. I get so spooked now.
Yeah.
When we are in line for a big ride that I feel like I cannot do it. I was the one that would literally like be like, wow, you're not going to come on this. You're lame, like whatever. But now I just have this like overwhelming fear, and I
am the opposite. I used to be so scared, and I would like not go on roller coasters. But a couple years ago, I was like, let me just try. And I did. And oh my gosh, it was so fun. And I love roller coasters.
I always did it until this last year when I went with you and Catherine. Like literally, that was when it hit me that I'm terrified and I don't think I can do it.
Yeah.
But I still like big roller coasters, just not the big drops. Like that's the ones that was like, or the ones where you're facing the ground. But like, I still like the like rickety ones where you're like, still there's like drops, but it's not as bad.
It's not like
whoosh. Not like the I don't know, it depends on which. Like at Carowinds there's like Intimidator, and the new one, that 360, what is it called, 360, it has numbers, I don't remember what it's called. That's like the new one that's even steeper than the Intimidator. I guess at Kings Island it would be like the
Diamondback and Orion.
And so I've done those at Carowinds, but Kings Island, the same thing. Just can't do it, but we'll see what happens.
I really want you to ride Orion with me because I pass out every time, and I want you to experience
What if I
that.
pass out?
You don't have an orthostatic issue. You don't have dysautonomia.
I might freak out and just pass out. Rachel passed out on some rides at the fair before.
She did?
Yeah, that boat ride that like goes up.
Yeah.
I love that ride.
I love that ride too. Catherine and I did it at our county fair a couple years ago. We did the like Viking ship ride, which we always do at Kings Island, and it's totally fine. But for some reason, the county fair one made us both so sick.
Oh my gosh.
So sick. And like, we don't really get sick on rides. But both of us got off and we were so sick. And so we like chilled for a little while. We were like, let's just sit down. So we sat down for a while, and then we were like, okay, I think we can like hit one more. And we went on this other ride that like I really believed that I was gonna hurl. Like I had never experienced anything like that. And I think that's just because it's like fair rides are so different from regular roller coasters,
Mm-hmm.
but like the harness was like so tight on me in the last ride that we did. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I think I'm like, oh, it was so bad. And I think if the ride had gone on any longer, I would have been done for.
I'm terrified of first of all, I'm terrified of any rides getting thrown up on, but the boat ride specifically,
Mm-hmm.
I always just imagine, because like when the other side goes up, and I would die. I would die.
Oh
if
my
I
gosh.
Yeah, I can't even ride most fair rides. I can only ride like the boat and do like bumper cars, because anything else that spins, I'll be the one throwing up, and I'll be sick for like the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I love terrible. Spinny rides. Oh my gosh, I love spinny rides.
I wish I could. I couldn't even. Those like things at the park, those like spinny things that you get on, and then people will like push you.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do that. Tire swings, like even though you could push tire swings, everyone would always end up spinning them. I threw up from tire swings, like just my whole life as a kid. I couldn't do it either. So it's not even something that happened as I got older. It was always, I would still do it when I was a kid because I never learned my lesson. Yeah. And I wanted to have fun. Yeah. But now I don't play. If I go anywhere that could have something that spins, I'm like, no. If we go to like a haunted houses, sometimes they have stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
I always have to check and be like, do y'all have anything that spins? Because I can't go on that, because I will not recover for the next 2 days. I'll be sick, and I won't be able to like do anything normally. Yeah. It gives me like vertigo or something. Yeah. Terrible.
Can't relate. I love to spin. I loved those things, those merry-go-rounds at the park. The faster the better.
I could do like carousels, but anything else like was too much for me. And carousels, even after I would get off, it would be like a little lightheaded. So now I just don't play with anything.
That is tragic.
Yeah.
When I worked in the bookstore when I was young, sometimes we would get like lost kids, you know? Kids separated from their families. Oh.
I was like they were sent there, like.
Yes, we were Peter Pan and they were the Lost Boys.
Next you're going to tell me they have tunnels underneath the Creation Museum.
No, we're not Disney as much as they would like to be.
No.
No, so one time there was a little kid in the bookstore that was crying, really young. And I was like watching him. I was like looking around like there was no parent. I like brought him over to the registers and we were talking to him and we're like, do you know where your mom and dad are? No. Tears. Panic. Sadness.
I would be too.
Really little, like 2 years old, like really little. And so we called security and one of the officers came to like obviously they were looking for his family, but one came to like sit with him until the family was found. It was just so cute because the officer that came, he was like talking to the kid and Joe was a new dad. And so he was like showing him pictures of his daughter. He was like, you know, my daughter is close to your age, and was like showing him pictures and everything. And it was so cute. And the kid, like Joe, like went and got him a stuffed animal. And so they were just sitting by the registers with the stuffed animal. And Joe was like keeping him company and keeping him calm and everything. And they did eventually find the family. They were in the planetarium. And it was like a family of 1,000 kids, you know?
Oh, that's why it was easy to lose them.
Yeah. So everybody was like, oh, I thought you had him. I thought you had him. I thought you had him.
Like Home Alone.
Exactly. So at least it had a happy ending. But
yeah, the
poor kid was like so like devastated. But it's just so funny because I was left as a kid a lot. My mom's going to watch this and be like, wow, you just really letting it all out.
You're going to be like, no, you weren't.
Yeah. And like to me, I'm like, oh, I was always left. And she was like, I always knew where you were. Okay, but I didn't know where you were, Miss Girl. So
that feeling of losing your parent in like a grocery store and then you go up and think it's them, like,
oh my gosh,
why is that a universal experience?
I don't know.
And then you go and like, oh, that's not my dad. But one time Rachel literally grabbed this woman's hand because she thought it was she either thought it was my mom or thought it was Erica. I don't remember. And the lady just like looked at her and smiled. She's like, I'm not your mom, but you're so
Aw.
cute or something. And then she like looked disturbed when she realized,
Yeah.
because when you're just like a little short person,
Yes.
you're just like, you see someone from behind, and that's so sad.
Yes, I have one of those moments. I was probably like 4 or 5, and I remember it was at our own house. We had people over, and
Wait, you lost yourself in your own house?
yes, we had people over, and I was walking from the kitchen. I walked into the dining room, and I went and took my dad's arm, and he used to have a watch where like you could press like the crown of the watch and it would light up. It was like glow in the dark. And so I just like took his arm and I pressed the crown and nothing happened. And I was like, your watch is broken. And then I looked up and it was the other man in the house. And I was just like, and which like I knew him very well. Like,
but it's still,
it was
crazy.
Still, like when you think you're going to look up and see your dad and you see somebody else, it's like very shocking. I started crying. He's just like, it's fine. But yeah, that it's just so like
it feels
alarming.
like the end of the world, first of all, when you're lost.
Yes.
And then when it's like you're literally like standing with or walking with someone that the whole time is not your dad.
Yeah, and like I don't know, it's just like you get ripped out of like the reality that you thought you were in.
Yes.
And you're like, oh my gosh.
And it's like humiliating, and you always cry. Like I would always
Yes.
cry.
Well, what was your mundane miracle
Of the week?
of the week? Of your life?
We had a very nice hike. We went to this park that we never been to before, and it was like actually like such a nice little hike. Like it was just the perfect weather for a hike. It was like warm but like a little breezy, and yeah, it was just it was so nice. And I just love being able to do that stuff, like because you know in winter you kind of just are like, oh, you want to go bowling? Like it's like I don't even like bowling that much, but I guess because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
But so now that we can like walk around outside, like be outside, do things outside, it's just so nice because there's so many places to explore. There's so many things to do outdoors, and I love the outdoors.
Yeah, that was really nice. A really good day.
What about you?
I think mine is the tacos we had the other night. Those were so satisfying. Just like they just hit the spot. So good. And they whipped up so fast.
Yeah, because we went shopping hungry and we came home with all them ingredients and we whipped up everything. Just like literally like probably 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was.
I don't even know how we did it, but we were just hungry and like manic preparing and putting groceries away.
Yeah. Oh, and it was just so good. Yum. I love that.
I love tacos.
Same.
Thanks for listening, guys.
See you next week.
Peace.